All right, so I wanted to start making videos on Shadow Priest stuff because going into season 2, I want to make more Shadow Priest videos covering Shadow Priest stuff because I think there's just a lot of people who are looking for some more in-depth explanations on some M plus things, and even just ratings in general. But I've been getting whispered a lot in game, on live servers about stuff, asking for videos, things like that. So I figured I would start with some 10.1 Shadow stuff, and going into season 2, there will be more stuff to talk about. But I wanted to make this video because with the recent Shadow changes, specifically the tier set changes, and some other things, I think this is honestly playstyle wise the final iteration of Shadow, in my opinion. I could obviously completely be wrong about this and I could just be talking out of my ass, but with the tier set being almost completely redesigned, at least the 4 set changing completely, I think this is a version of Shadow that has a pretty high chance of making it to live. I will preface all of this by saying I currently do think on PTR Shadow is a little overtuned, so I would expect some numerical nerfs to the class. As much as I like to joke around with the people I was playing keys with, it is not a skill issue. Shadow is just doing some pretty crazy things right now in PTR, but I wanted to cover a lot of it. So I wrote out some bullet points here to cover, and I will have some log stuff to look at and go over some specifics with you guys on some things, some of my testing, some logs we did, and these were definitely some high keys, right? Like we did 23 under and the group I ran with was some definite gamers for sure. We played sorry, let me grab this. Played with Karm, Equinox, Meg, Quasi, some like region first key gamers, stuff like that. So these are definitely some legit keys that I think we obtained some very valuable information on, some build information, some playstyle stuff. So I'm just gonna really cover that and go over some things. So the main thing, first big thing I want to cover is current 10.7 Shadow versus what 10.1 is going to look like. And the biggest thing is Psychic Link. So on live currently, you have the option to play Mindseer if you want. That talent is normally right here where Psychic Link is currently on the PTR. I personally am not a Mindseer fan on live. I know some people love it, some people hate it. It's kind of a whatever thing. I do, however, play Mindseer on Fortified Algathar weeks because when you do big pulls in the tree boss room, stuff like that, you really just have to be playing Mindseer in those weeks to help the key go faster. But the big change for 10.1, Mindseer is just straight up gone. They are full investing into the Psychic Link build, which is the Seerless build that people are playing on live right now. It functions very, very, very similarly currently on live as it does on 10.1. The only difference is that Psychic Link itself it cleaves 20% less damage. So this 60% on live is now 40%. However, it now is affected by all of your single target spells. So this is including Devouring Plague, right? Which is huge, huge for us. Getting Devouring Plague cleaving on Psychic Link is crazy. The other thing that I will touch on a little bit more in depth when I get to it is this Death Speaker talent, which is pretty much, if you're familiar with sudden death procs on Warrior, where they get to execute regardless of HP, is the same thing for us, but this will also Psychic Link cleave, which is huge. Shocker, it fucking pumps. So I mean that's really the the biggest thing, the biggest difference. Also, Shadow Crash being pushed down to a 20-second CD means that we never drop our dots without running Mental Decay. So this is kind of really just like a single target talent where you would drop this in raid, you would drop Shadow Crash and these two talents in raid because they separated Shadow Crash and Whispering Shadows, and you have to talent into it applying VT on 8 targets, whereas on live right now this is one combined talent that is located right here, I believe, or right here. So on single target in raid, you would not take these, and you would just take Mental Decay, which they kind of combined with some other talents because it has this 10% Mind Flame, Mind Spike damage on it, which is fine. But I mean, this is really just a single target talent now because you would just take these points out and you'd probably put it like here and here or like here and here or something like that, something along those lines. Or you would just grab another. No, you can't grab another idol. Alright, I'm capping. Yeah, so you would put the point here and here, something like that. So that is another big change, is that permanent uptime on dots on packs because of Shadow Crash. As long as you're using it on CD, you will reapply dots correctly. And if you're running Void Eruption, which is looking quite good in 10.1, if you are running Void Eruption, it's even easier to keep your dots up with new Void Bolt. Not new Void Bolt, but how Void Bolt functions in general. So I think that is the big playstyle difference. People are gonna have to get used to if you're not used to playing Seerless on live. You're gonna have to get used to playing just this kind of, essentially you're just doing a single target rotation into one mob and you're doing your most AoE at the same time. We've pretty much been turned into Outlaw Rogues with Blade Flurry, where we just hit one guy. We have a lot of priority damage because we're doing that. And it just cleaves 40% of our damage to everything else that has our dots, which is, I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty nice. It's a little boring because you pretty much just do your single target rotation the whole dungeon. Which, I mean, if some people like that, I mean, I'm sure you'll be happy with this version. So yeah, Seer versus no Seer. I mean, we're being pigeonholed into this unless something changes and they bring it back. But it doesn't seem like it because they pretty much just straight up removed it quite early in the PTR builds. So I'm not expecting to see Seer come back in 10.1. Maybe in 10.2 they'll mess with something, try to bring Seer back. Who knows? Tier set changes. So this is why I decided to make a video on this, because I think this is the iteration of the tier that will go live, at least mechanically speaking, as in numbers might get tuned. Like I said at the beginning of the video, that I do expect Shadow nerfs. Everybody should be expecting them right now if you have been playing on PTR, because Shadow fucking annihilates everything right now. They are crazy good. To give you an idea, even on these 23s or like 20s and 23s that we were doing, unironically, I thought the key was too low. Packs were dying too quickly. Couldn't get my full ramp out, stuff like that. And I was still top overall at 98k. Keep in mind, these we are scaled down to 410 item level when testing all these dungeons. So we are doing these at 410, and the dungeons are scaled to the current live difficulty as well. So it would be the same as if you had walked into a 20 ruby life pools at 410 item level on live, essentially, is pretty much what this is. Same thing with the Undra. It'd be like if you walked into a 23 ruby at 410 eye level right now on live. That's the kind of scaling we're working with. And when I say our damage was so crazy that I felt like these were even too low of a key to get my full damage out on CDs, yeah, we are pumping right now, to say the least. So the big thing with the tier is that this two-piece largely remained kind of the same, where it just kind of has emphasis on Shadowy Insight, having your Mind Blast reset, getting the instant cast, stuff like that, and it just got changed to give it a slightly, and I say very slightly, increased proc chance, and when you use the proc, it deals 30% increased damage and generates a little bit more insanity. So it's a little single target increase. The insanity, you barely feel it, to be completely honest with you, because we are generating fuck tons of insanity with the current build that I'm playing. And the 30% damage is just, it's a little cherry on top. It's a two-piece, not meant to be game-changing, game-altering, anything like that. It's just a nice little DPS bump. And the four-piece is obviously the bread and butter that did get changed from spawning Mindbender. And if you saw, I am not specting the Mindbender for any of these AoE dungeons because it has lost its value, I believe. Just with the way a lot of this stuff is functioning, I think Mindbender has lost a significant amount of value, especially with the four-piece being about apparitions now. So the four-piece is 15% Devouring Plague damage, which, hey, I'll take that all day, right? And every 4 casts of Devouring Plague increase your apparitions damage by 80% for 10 seconds. So I think this is a very, very, very overtuned four-piece on AoE. And I'll explain to you why that is in just a moment. Yeah, I mean, it's a very good tier set. I like the tier set being revolving around spirits. It's been a while since spirits have felt like a strong percentage of our damage. I can even show you here with the build I'm running in this Brackenhide. You can see my overall breakdown. You see apparitions is my second highest, and I like that. It's nice and smooth. It has a little bit of spikiness for when you actually proc the force set if you're not in CDs, so the damage spikes a little bit. But spawning apparitions and spawning tons and tons and tons of them is actually so much fun. I mean, you can even see I had average hits for 10k. I think my highest hit I must have had. It should give me my highest hit, shouldn't it? No, it doesn't. That's tragic. I know. Actually, I think it'll be in here somewhere, like on bosses. I mean, Spirit's hit for 37k. I mean, 34k. I know in like full CDs they can hit. I've seen them hit for like 50, 60k, something like that. So it's a very spirits oriented 4-piece, which I like. It's a little new, and I think it actually opens up a lot of builds in our talent tree, which is the next point. So Spirits back? I believe they are. I believe a full investment into Spirits build is actually crazy. I also did a similar build to what I'm about to show you in raid testing, and it still did very competitive single target. And by very competitive, I mean I was pretty much number 1 or number 2 on the meters for the bosses that we were fighting. And obviously a lot of this is some classes aren't working or don't have their tier in, blah 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 blah, that sort of stuff. So I mean, this is a very good talent build. I've messed around with this a lot. I've played very many different iterations of this, and this is the iteration I landed on. And there's a few other aspects of this that don't revolve around the talent tree that's very important to touch on. So the big thing is that with the 4-piece revolving so much around spirits, I really wanted to just get a spirit build going, right? So we had a few new talents added into the talent tree. If you're not familiar with the new 10.1 PTR talent tree, you'll see some of these idols got moved around. You see Idol in the Zolth was here. Like these got swapped. Tormented Spirits. There's a lot of new talents here. So I'll kind of go over from top to bottom, kind of the important points to talk about, right? So a lot of this has remained unchanged. The part that sucks is that since Psychic Link is now a required talent where Mind Sphere used to be, we actually are losing Mental Fortitude. I don't actually know if we can ever take this talent ever. We'd have to drop Silence or Surge of Insanity, which I both think are just ludicrous ideas for picking this up. If you are a high M pluser like myself, and you find yourself, let's say currently in a theoretical doing a 27, 28 no cood, right? Tyrannical, Tyr Maruk. I mean, Mental Fortitude is a required talent. I believe if I stepped into a 27 or 28 no cood without Mental Fortitude, I would die on every Gil Arrow set. It would be disastrous. So I'm not happy to see this going away. Well, it's not going away. It's just we're pretty much never going to be able to grab this talent ever. In Rage, you would be able to. If your kick's not required, you can unspec out of Silence and grab this. But in M+, I really can't imagine you ever can take this because you'll need kick, and Surge of Insanity is such a very high part of your damage, I believe. It's just so good. Because I mean, fucking look at like base Mind Flay, like 20k, 12 Insanity. It's such a longer cast. It's so much better, quicker. Like it's just, yeah, I can't imagine ever dropping Surge of Insanity for Mental Fort. Maybe if you really had to, you would have to, and you would really hurt your damage a lot. But I'd like to see some sort of fix for this. But yeah, big thing. So they kind of dropped these, these were the proccing damage buffs that would give you like increased Mind Blast and Mind Spike damage. They kind of just got rid of all that and moved the Shadow Crash talents over here and split it into 2. So you have to talent into Shadow Crash and also talent into the application of VT. Thought Harvester was just removed from Shadowy Insight to fill this talent row because these used to be combined. Whatever, don't really mind it much. Big thing is that people were complaining about having Mind Flay and Mind Spike together and kind of competing in your rotation, which I don't really understand why anyone was complaining about that. If you had 5 Brain Cells, you could play it fine. Use 1 extra button to press, like people crying about whatever. So they decided to separate them and make them replace each other. So if you can only play Mind Flay or Mind Spike, and you have to talent into Mind Spike to replace Mind Flay. And so what this talent does is that if you're not talented into this, it will affect your Mind Flay Insanity. And if you are spec'd into Mind Spike, you get the Mind Spike Insanity portion of it. So I've done a lot of testing with this. And I was playing Mind Spike for a while when I was playing DA because Dark Ascension does not increase your Mind Flay Insanity damage because it is considered a periodic effect. But it does increase your Mind Spike damage. So this gave you a lot more damage in your cooldown windows. But the problem with this that I encountered is the build that I was playing, I was actually generating too much insanity. So I was actually never even pressing Mind Spike in my CDs because my spirit, my shadowy apparition spawning abilities, which would be, Mind Blast, Devouring Plague, Void Bolt, that sort of stuff, were too high priority in my CDs that I was never casting Mind Spike because it was too low damage of a global during my CDs, and it was just never able to get casted. So I really just dropped these two talents for AoE because Mind Flay Insanity really, really smooths out your damage outside of cooldowns, which I think is very important, especially when you're running Void Eruption, which I think will actually be the play. It just really smooths out your damage outside of CDs. It helps you. I mean, it generates double the insanity of Mind Spike Insanity, which is huge because, in all honesty, this might get changed because you get Mind Flay Insanity and Mind Spike Insanity in the same way, and you get the same amount of them. But the disparity in the damage and insanity generation, I think, is way too. It's just too big between Mind Flay Insanity and Mind Spike Insanity. So Mind Flay Insanity is just superior in pretty much every way. It's still Psychic Link Cleaves. It's just a very, very good spell. You do have to channel it, so it's like theoretically double the quote-unquote cast time because Mind Spike's a 1.2 cast and this is a 2.3 second channel, so it's almost double. But I really found that wasn't an issue. Because you're munching these procs in CDs. You are casting Devouring Plague so freaking often that you're not even worrying about this talent in your CDs of overriding this because it can accumulate up to 2 charges, right? So you can have 2 Mind Flay Insanities ready or 2 Mind Spike Insanities ready. But I'm telling you right now, in CDs, especially with Void Bolt and Void Eruption, you are not even worried about pressing this button because you just want to spawn spirits. And I'll go over that, why you want to do that in just a second. So Maddening Touch got buffed and changed, and I think this is the most fucking OP talent we have, to be completely honest with you. 30% VT damage and a chance to generate 2 insanity each time it deals damage. So the reason why this is so insane is because we are able to take Screams of the Void quite reliably now in a lot of these builds. And with the amount of insanity generation you're getting during your CDs, you have Screams of the Void up pretty much the entire time in your CDs. You are casting Devouring Plague at least every other global, if not every 3 globals. One of them is a DP, and this is obviously, I'm not like dumping DP, and I'm like maintaining mastery value. I mean, even though with Void Eruption doesn't really matter, but that sort of stuff. Like I'm playing the build properly. I'm not trying to like skew my Screams of the Void uptime. This thing will have uptime crazy during your CDs, which makes Maddening Touch go hard as fuck. So I can actually show you in the 20 Bracken Hide. I mean, my Vampiric Touch damage was, right here. 9.6. I mean, that is very nice. In the Underrot, it was again almost 10% of my damage. Like it's close to Devouring Plague. Which, considering Devouring Plague being our only spender right now, is it's quite good. And obviously, it's ticking very frequently, right? Like 1,700 hits. It's generating you a lot of insanity on big AoE pulls. It is very, very, very good. Dark Evangelism is a talent that we typically do not get to play on live right now, depending on your build. If you play Seer, I think you do get to take Dark Evangelism quite reliably, but if you're like me and you do not like playing Seer very well, or you like the priority damage for your group comp, and you play Seerless, you do not really take Dark Evangelism because you're not doing very many periodic dot effects. But this just, it ramps this damage, it just really helps your stuff just deal way more damage. Especially because your DP is a periodic effect, right? So that's like single target. It also makes your DP deal more psychic link damage, right? So this talent's very strong. It just really combines with pretty much everything we're doing. So this right side of the tree, we got a lot of new talents. Void Touched, pretty straightforward. 6% DP damage and 50 max insanity. Very nice. It's a very nice talent. The 50 max insanity might seem a little weird to some people. All it really means is that you kind of sit in this, like, I'll actually just show you. So when I do my CDs here, let's just say I do some random shit. It doesn't really matter what I do here. So you'll see here in a second. See how I get all these procs? These procs are going. I'm building up my insanity, and then I'm pretty much never going to drop below like 100 most of the time. And you see, again, I'm not really, now that I've gotten going, I'm not super frequently casting Mind Flame Insanity. I'm lagging a little bit because this is fucking PTR, but the main emphasis is these abilities that are spawning spirits, reapplying your dots, boom, boom. Then when you have nothing else, then you go for a full channel. You know what I mean? So stuff like this. And you see, I'm keeping my. I pretty much want to refresh Devouring Plague right when it's about to fall off, and I'm just trying to build up as much insanity in the meantime. And then boom, press it again, reapply that VT. Wait, boom, that sort of thing, right? So you're really just sitting at a high insanity pool, just to really get maximum uptime on your DP for whenever you need it. And it just leads to a really smooth AoE gameplay feel. Like the insanity generation is very nice. I mean, you can see I'm not really struggling to generate insanity on any of this, and it just feels real nice. You can see the breakdown here as well, right? So this is like raw AoE breakdown, right? I was hitting that for like 140. My 2 minutes are about to come back up, right? So, I mean, just look at the VT damage, right? Like, it's matching. I mean, it's going to be skewed now because I'm still in combat, but VT damage is up there with the spirits. The spirits are real nice. I mean, even Shadowward Pain damage is above DP. Yeah, I mean, it all feels really nice. I really like the shadows being like this. So yeah, so the 50 Insanity is really just helps you smooth out keeping your DP uptime on targets, which I think is really nice. Something Shadow, I wouldn't say needed, but if you play around this properly, you're not just casting DP every time you get 50 Insanity and you're starving yourself. You know, you have to be able to play this properly. Phantasmal Pathogen, fantastic single target talent. It is a talent I'm taking right now in M+, because I don't think these points are better spent anywhere else on the tree, to be completely honest with you. It honestly still does do good. Like, you still feel the damage in AoE. Like 150 spirit damage, even on one target, is still very good, and it still helps your prio damage, which is kind of the damage profile that Shadow has right now. It kind of makes them very, very good. And M+ is having that kind of priority damage cleave damage profile, which is very nice. So this kind of just emphasizes that. This node I'm really only taking to get to this because I'm not going Mind Spike, Mind Melt. I mean, reduces Devouring Plague cost by 5 is like literally nothing. This talent is just like mathematically bad because it's like tuned terribly. Like 8% damage for a 10% insanity cost just doesn't make sense. So yeah, this is a trav node for this. This got changed to a 1-point node, and the base cooldown of Void Torrent got changed to 45 seconds from a minute. So this is all still technically the same if you talent into it. This still gives you 30-second Void Torrent. It's just a 1-point node now. Also, Insidious Ire got changed to affect Void Torrent damage as well. So this could be a talent option. I've yet to really figure out a talent build I like to play with it because you're kind of strapped for talents at this bottom part, and I don't think it's good enough to warrant it. But I could be wrong. I haven't really tested it yet, so it's definitely possible. If it was better, I'd have to imagine it's very marginally better. So if you're not good at playing Insidious Ire, it's probably not going to be a better option for you. And I Love Cthulhu got changed a little bit to the point where when you cast Void Torrent, you will guaranteed spawn a tendril. So I can literally just show you right here. I can walk up to this guy, get in range, press Void Torrent, and boom, spawn it. Okay, I actually spawned 2 there. I'm hacking. Don't ban me, please. But you get the idea. It auto spawns 1 every time. So auto spawning it on a 30-second CD, I think is fantastic. Also, Void Torrent just hits like a truck. They also lowered the insanity generation from 60 to 24, which I think is nice because it makes it a lot easier to press this button. And you can even see in CDs too how much insanity I was generating. If this thing generated 60 insanity still, I would overcap insanity so hard, and it'd be really hard to justify pressing this button in CDs without like wasting a shit ton of insanity. So I like that they that they changed it to generate 24 instead of 60. However, that means like get the startup insanity generation on pulls that you're dry on does feel a little bit worse because you don't just get to like void torrent on pull if you wanted to and just shoot up to 60 insanity and kind of get your stuff rolling, which kind of sucks. But it's not really a big deal. So Auspicious Spirits did get changed a little bit. They upped the insanity generation from 1 to 2. However, they made it now give a chance to generate 2. So now you can kind of see how we're getting into the spirits build a little bit. I just think Auspicious Spirits. This was a talent I wasn't even taking when the old 4-piece with Mindbender was in. But with the new spirits, I mean, pretty much any spirit related talent I think just has the insane value right now. Screams of the Void, same thing. The location just changed from I think here to here. Mastermind is a new talent that I have been playing around with. I think this talent is pretty equal with Screams of the Void, but I think Screams of the Void is better on single target than Mastermind is, and I think Mastermind, yeah, it's really hard to gauge. I've tried both of them, and they feel pretty similar. I just think Screams of the Void is better. That's my personal opinion. It could be very close. I could be wrong, but based off the testing I've done, multiple 20s, 20. I mean, this is just the log. This is just one log we had from one night of testing, but doing 23s, 20s, 22s. I mean, I even have this set that we did. We did 22 freehold, and then we were fucking around we're actually fucking around in a 23 Brackenhide for a while, testing some stuff. We did like 20, 22, stuff like that. So I think Streams of the Void is better. And Idol of N'Zoth, I feel like has been underperforming from what I'm used to. I don't know why. I just felt like the damage has been very just not very good. I mean, it sucks single target. We all know that already. This is like a pure AoE talent. I have seen people opt out of Death Speaker for Idol of N'Zoth. My only concern with that is let me try to find a dungeon that it was pretty good at. I mean, Shadow Word Death was 5% of my overall, right? Just raw hitting Shadow Word Death with Death Speaker and the normal like execute stuff, right? So I think Death Speaker definitely brings it up a lot, but it's not carrying. Death Speaker is definitely not carrying. And typically on live, I mean, Idol of N'Zoth on a good AoE dungeon probably does like 6 to 7%. I think is like the real juicy amount. And then on the kind of lower end target count dungeons like Shadow Moon or Court, I think Idol of N'Zoth typically, from what I see, does around 4% to like 3.5%. So I think Death Speaker is just a better option because while it may not completely blow Idol of N'Zoth out of the water on AoE, I think it's very competitive because of Shadow Word Death now cleaving Psychic Link. So when you get these Death Speaker packs, or when you get these Death Speaker procs during packs and you press this button, this thing fucking hits so hard. I mean, I had like my average death hit was like 56k. I know for a fact I've hit 100k crits on Death Speaker, especially when I was running Mastermind, because this gives you increased crit dam. So I mean, I just think Death Speaker is a fucking crazy good talent, and it gives you so much single target damage too. I think you might be able to even see on here. Yeah, look at this. This is a single target boss fight. Who is this? Forge Master. I mean, look at Death here. Like, holy shit, this thing's hitting hard. 90k. Like, some of these were actually casted in the execute window, but you can even see during the fight, I got 13 Death Speaker procs. So I got 13 free fucking Shadow Word Death casts that dealt 250% damage and was increased by 25% as well. So, I mean, this talent is just fucking crazy. I think if anybody doesn't take this talent in any scenario, they might just be trolling, to be completely honest with you. It gives you just so much nice. It gives you an option. It gives you a global depress for movement. It just does big damn. Like, it's just really nice. It interacts with a lot of our stuff. So it's just really nice. I love Yogg is the exact same thing. So Tormented Spirits, I think, is where I have taken this current iteration of Shadow and really run with it in a way that I don't think a lot of people are expecting. So this is where I'll kind of touch on some of the important Shadow Priest stuff. So I already talked about some of the build diversity stuff. I don't even think there's going to be an option or like an argument to run Mind Spike in its current iteration because Mind Flame Sanity is just way too good. Losing Mental Force sucks big time. Yes, that is true. I already covered that. 10.1 key talents to look out for. I mean, Maddening Touch is huge. Death Speaker is huge. Tormented Spirits is huge, and I'll touch on that in a second. I think it's going to be a Void Eruption meta for sure because of Void Bolt and the build that I'm going to explain to you guys in just a moment here. So yeah, I'll go over the build. So obviously this is a very spirits-oriented build, and with that, we have to look at the spirits themselves. So the big point we want to look at is critical strikes increase the damage of your spirits by 100%. So that's huge. Now, I know you might be thinking, I am not talented into Ancient Madness, and I'm talking about crit, right? And I'm just going to say it, I think Ancient Madness blows dick. I cannot find a talent point that I'd rather have in any of these spots. Potentially 1 point from Phantasmal Pathogen, but I mean, I just don't think 10% crit's enough. I really don't. I've tested it. It doesn't feel good enough. Phantasmal Pathogen on single target is so good that I just can't really think. I think you can get plenty of crit. You don't need to put the talent point here. And then Tormented Spirits, which I know I kind of overlooked because I was going to explain my build. So Tormented Spirits is a big one. Your Shadow Word Pain has a 6% chance to create shadowy apparitions that float towards all your targets with VT, and critical strikes increase the chance to 12%. So again, we are seeing more crit synergy. Crits spawn more spirits. Spirits spawned by crits deal 100% increased damage. Critical strikes increase the damage, right? I do not actually know if these crit spirits work to get the 100% damage increase. That's probably something I should test at some point, which I will. But either way, even if it's not working, I think this is still a very strong interaction. And again, this really puts Screams of the Void in the forefront, really just puts it in a spotlight here, because it's just Shadow Word Pain damage, right? So if you are having it deal damage faster and faster and faster constantly, you're just getting way more of these procs, which is way more spirits, which is way more single target damage, which is way more AoE damage, which is way more AoE insanity generation, right? And you can see how this all starts kind of compounding in on itself. And so the big thing that I've been doing in a lot of these keys is I haven't changed almost any of my gear from live, other than I put on the OP cloak that everybody's fucking around with, the tier set, and I'm running double crit trinkets. So this is a very strong trinket. It pretty much has, I mean, we can look at the uptime on the Brackenhide, let's say. This thing has crazy uptime, I'm pretty sure. Was I not running it this dungeon and I'm going to make myself look like a fool? It's quite possible. Nope, here we are. Seething Flight, I mean, 55%. I believe I was dead here. This is why there's a gap here. So I mean, I have seen. I wish I don't have fucking overall saved for this, which is tragic. But I have seen this thing well into the 60%, 70% uptime. It's very good. It's a lot of crit. So you can even see I'm only geared for 15% crit, but I have actually been running the Iced File of Corrupting Rage, which is already a decent DPS option for Shadow Priest and M+. It does have the downside thing, which kind of sucks, right? But this puts you up to 21% crit automatically, which is very nice. Obviously, Shadow Gem, like if I lost the buff because I took too much damage. But yeah, Shadow Gem with crit, this with also crit. I mean, you're definitely hitting. This puts you to 27 automatically if you actually had the like 33% crit just on CDs, and then also an extra like 1,000 So you get a good amount of crit for your CDs, right? And it's constant with the dragon scale. And I actually think I'll call it right now. I would expect with this current iteration, if everything were to like just go live right now, let's say, I would expect you actually would want to gear some crit. You might actually want to end up splitting a little bit of your mastery into crit. Haste is still going to be king for sure. But I think you are actually going to want some crit here because especially if you're going to be playing Void Eruption where you just like auto get a bunch of mastery on all your targets. I think crit's going to be very, very strong here because you're going to have Void Bolt, which is another avenue of generating spirits every time you cast it. And if that crits, you are then, those spirits are dealing 100% increased damage, which once you get your 4-piece rolling, right, all that, you can see how the spirit damage starts really, really ramping up here. And I mean, you can see, right, like I was playing with very good players. And I mean, I was doing very good on the overalls, right? I mean, 98. I mean, we were kind of fucking around a little bit, but I mean, 98k overall on the 20, the 23. I mean, it was 80 because we were kind of trolling some of these. Like the 22 freehold was what? I mean, I fucking obliterated on this one. Like this one is fucking crazy. Yeah, so I think this build's very strong. This is kind of what I would expect if I was just a casual Shadow Priest player, right? I would kind of advise you to kind of mull some of these over and try to get familiar with kind of the playstyle of the whole Psychic Link build because we're pretty much being pigeonholed into it. And kind of, I would confidently say get ready for fucking Spirits to be back, baby. I mean, I'm excited. I think it's looking real nice and juicy. It's been working for me so far, so I'm definitely going to expect a few number tweaks here and there for Shadow because we're a little fucking crazy right now. But I think the general gameplay flow is going to remain the same. Honestly, I'd love to see the 2-piece get buffed because this thing fucking sucks. But hey, I'll still take it. So a few other points I wanted to touch on real quick is some of the PTR dungeon testing that I've been doing. Just in general, right? The kind of agency that Priest has. Things that we've been noticing. Brackenhide has a lot of humanoids in the beginning. You can actually Mind Soothe and Fade and open a lot of the crates or a lot of the jail cells that you have to free the people from. You can open quite a few of those without having to actually pull the pack, which gives you a lot of route freedom in those dungeons, which I think is going to be very strong in the high M+, like high pushing. That's going to be very huge to be able to have a lot of route freedom in that beginning area because it's so open and you're able to Mind Soothe all that stuff because it's almost all humanoids. There's a few beasts, but it's really not a big deal for where they're located in the dungeon. At least the route that we were running. Equinox definitely ran a few different routes that still all felt really fine. MD in some dungeons. Again, Brackenhide first boss is probably going to get changed. If you're not familiar with it, essentially what happens is it's a 3-target fight. These guys, Trick Totem, Gash Tooth, and fucking Rira Hack Claw. What a weird ass name. Anyway, they do a mechanic where they drop a totem. The totem CCs the healer, and you have to kill the totem. The totem had like 1,000,000 HP on it, so it's definitely not something you can one-shot. It CCs the healer, and at the same time, it puts a disorient debuff on this guy, on the tank. Decayed senses. Sorry, it is a magic effect. It is a disorient. But it's a magic effect. So their intended philosophy is that you're supposed to break the healer out quick enough that they can dispel the tank, and the tank then gets aggro on everything back. Because while the tank is disoriented, these boss mobs are just smacking DPS, right? However, the timing is very tight on that, and the totem that this guy puts, the Hex Trick Totem, incapacitating them for 15 seconds, right? This thing has a lot of HP. So the only strat that we've been able to theorize actually works is having MD to just MD the tank, and you can take all the time in the world to break out the healer. It's very strong, damn near required on a high enough key because that totem's going to have a fuck ton of HP, and you're not breaking that shit. You're not killing that totem anytime soon and breaking your tank out. So again, I mean, this would be a Warlock Imp Dispel angle, right? that could also be a thing, but you get a very large amount of MD value on this dungeon. Other dungeons that you get very big MD value on are the Halls of Infusion. This guy, Watcher Iridius. So he puts out these power overload things that drop some dog shit on the floor, and he puts out multiple. So the way we were dealing with it was that we were stacking, MDing it, and moving, right? Which I really don't know how else you're going to do that, because the later the fight goes, the bigger the fields get that you drop. And to be completely honest with you, when we were doing that fight, it was covering like almost the entire room at the end, where like you had to, it was when it got dispelled, it was 100 yards. Like the thing was fucking huge. So another MD value, very huge. Disease Dispel. Having Disease Dispel a Shadow is actually not as insane as I think a lot of people are going to be expecting to be, even with Afflicted. Afflicted, I think, is a very easy healer mechanic to heal up. They don't have a lot of HP. They can do random dispels. They can also get like poison, disease, curse dispelled, right? So you're not really going to be helping too much on that front, I don't believe, unless like your comp really doesn't have any other ways to get around the Afflicted affix. Disease Dispel and Brackenhide really isn't that huge. It definitely is very important to have one. But you can grab the little cauldrons around in the dungeon to get free disease dispels for your whole party, stuff like that. So there's some counterplay to it that it's not really like if you don't have one, the dungeon's undoable. Maybe on high enough key it is, being completely honest with you, but it's a little hard to tell right now on PTR. Some of the dungeons are a little underscaled, and then other parts of the same dungeon are a little scaled too high, stuff like that. Freehold Mind Soothe. I mean, Mind Soothe has yet again just displayed itself to be a fucking OPS spell in some of these dungeons, some of these big open dungeons like Freehold, like Brackenhide, where you have a lot of freedom in the routing. They're all humanoid creatures almost, and you can Mind Soothe and do whatever the hell you want in those dungeons. I think it is very, very strong. Probably going to see a lot of interesting routing happening, probably with some Mind Soothe stuff. So definitely something to look out for. And I think that's really it. I mean, our agency is kind of the same. We still bring pretty much the same stuff. Our VE is getting fixed to not work off of our Psychic Link damage, which will suck a little bit. However, VE still does crank during your CDs, does do a lot of healing, smart healing, that sort of stuff. We still have pretty much all... we have priority damage with Psychic Link. It's a little different now because it's harder to run Insidious Ire, so your priority damage is a little bit less than some of the builds you can run on live right now. But your AoE spread damage goes way, 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 way up. And that's the other thing too to mention with this against Seer, is that this being your AoE build means this works on grouped up mobs, spread out mobs, mobs in different universes. As long as you have your dots on them, you're getting all types of whatever cleave you want, and obviously as long as you're within 40 yards of them, you're getting all the cleave you could ever want. Your spirits are still getting spawned and hitting them. You don't need mobs to be close together, I guess theoretically for Shadow Crash, but you can still manually dot mobs that are like far on boss fights, stuff like that. So I mean, our agency is still very, very much the same. Honestly, Idol of Yogg and Idol of N'Zoth, I know I didn't really touch on this. You can definitely... I wouldn't ever untalent out of this because spawning it on a 30-second cooldown is pretty crazy. I wouldn't ever untalent out of this. I played around with both of these. I think technically Idol of N'Zoth looks better on PTR because a lot of mobs on the PTR are actually killing our pets, and this includes the Mind Flayers, the Idol Cthulhu mobs. So I think my thing from Beyond is actually dying a lot more than I can keep track of, and the damage is kind of getting reflected on that. It still does very good damage. I can check the freehold here. I don't remember what I ran on this. Yeah, I think from Beyond, I mean, it still has 5.7%. It's very good. I love Cthulhu is still a very good option. It just being able to spawn it on command on packs. It does. This is a little low for this. I think I died on a few pulls here because we were like fucking around doing random shit. But I mean, this is typically a 5%. Both of these combined is typically 5% overall plus the insanity it's generating you, which you can't really calculate, right? Unless you really wanted to. Um, so yeah, I mean, the big thing is get used to not playing Seer if you're used to playing it on live right now. I would at least try to get used to it because it's a pretty big gameplay change if you're not ready for it. Especially going into the spirits build too, it's going to be very very different for you. Again, I'm going to reiterate that I think this is going to be the iteration of Shadow Priest that probably goes live gameplay wise. Again, probably some numbers tuning is going to happen. I will advise you to expect that. So don't be sad when we get nerfed. If we don't get nerfed, the devs are blind and they should have nerfed us. I'll say it right now, I don't care. Um, so yeah, I think that's pretty much everything, to be completely honest with you. I mean, voter option DA, I've tested on both. They both feel pretty much the same. I think it'll just be a similar thing to how it is on live, where like if you're not in a coordinated group, probably just play DA for the 1 minute. It's just easier, less punishing than if you like whiff your CDs or something. But if you're in a coordinated high end plus group, I think voter option is going to be the way to go because it literally gives you an extra ability to spawn spirits, which is just unmatched on both single target and AoE. I think it is fucking crazy to have that, especially with this crit build that I'm playing. And you can see as well that I'm not really sacrificing like any important stats, right? Like you can get a lot of this just through your trinkets because trinkets and flasks. Obviously, you might not be able to run like a corrupting rage on high keys, which would kind of suck. Um, so I don't really know the viability of that, especially with the loss of mental fortitude and our tankiness, right? So we'll have to see kind of how that pans out. But I do think this is I'm not sacrificing a bunch of my other stats for crit, and I think crit is going to be a very very strong stat for Shadow in 10.1 because of this, 100% damage, this spawning them. It's just gonna be very 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 good. And obviously crits are not the only way to increase psychic link damage, but I think it is one of the better ways to increase psychic link damage. Theoretically, mastery would increase it because if you have both your dots up and you have higher mastery, they'll be taking percentage increase more damage per dot. But I think the crit's just better, especially if you're playing Void Eruption where your targets are just going to be maximum mastery value, which would count as 3 dots. So if you play DA, your mastery is actually worse technically, and then if you play Void Eruption, your mastery is better. So yeah, we'll have to see what tuning kind of happens going forward. I can release some dungeon VODs if you guys want. If you guys want to see them, I will also be streaming on my Twitch channel, which I will link. And yeah, so if anything changes, I might make another video on it. If not, this will probably be the only like PTR video I post regarding Shadow Priest. And then once the season starts, I will be posting more stuff, giving like initial thoughts for things, maybe some dungeon guides as Shadow. Yeah, so I hope you appreciated this informational video.